Hey guys, I'm back. All right. So a lot of people are asking me, well, what happens to all those abusers, right? Pedophiles or whatever else, sexual abusers. They do they pay back? Is it karma? Does God punish them? In hell and so on like that. Well, yes, but then to really solve the problem, that's what I really want to get at. Okay? It's not about blaming, it's not about pointing fingers or anything like that, but let's solve the problem because the problem hasn't resolved itself in thousands of years, the millennia, right? It's gotten worse and worse and worse. So what's the underlying problem? We have to get to the first principle level and become exponentially intelligent to go, oh, okay, that's the problem. So what happens to those individuals? One, they die, right? Or they go to jail, their life gets taken away and so on like that. But let's talk about the higher perspective. So those individuals, right, most likely they came from a family of abuse, distortions, okay? Or so their family was, say, a frequency of abusers, or a family of victims. Either way, or a merging of the two. So that's one. So basically, it's a genetic pattern or a familial pattern, whatever you want to call it, right? Mom was an abuser, dad was an abuser, I'm now an abuser. Or mom, dad was an abuser, now I'm a victim. Either way, the two components have to work together because in this reality, in this physical time bound reality, space time, things have to always say balance out. They always have to harmonize. If you look at nature, if you look at the physics of how this, say, earthly plane works, it's always about harmony and balance. Like you pour water somewhere, it'll always run to find its balance, right? You throw anything down, it'll always find its balance. Anything that happens again through like at an atomic level, okay, right down to the biggest thing that we can think of here will always fall into, say, balance and harmony. Okay, so what does that have anything to do with the abusers, right? They're going to get their day, right? Because we always say that through history, it's like, well, they destroyed me, they victimized me, but they're going to get their day. Yes, they will get their day. Okay, but the deal is, why does it keep perpetuating? Okay, we cannot be that person that gets victimized and then does nothing about it and goes, they're going to get their day, they're going to get it, they're going to be thrown in jail, they're going to go to hell. Well, here's the deal. If if this world is in harmony and balance, the best way to remove, or the best way to not have those situations happen to us, is to get stronger overall. Okay. So that victim individual, and by the way, I see both sides as victims and I see both sides as perpetrators. Okay. So it's just a balance. It's just a balance. And let me state that point again. Say that you run an abusive personality. Okay. If there is nobody to abuse outside of yourself, right? You're alone. You'll start abusing yourself. Simple as that. Say that you run a victim identity. It's literally a genetic coding for you. If you're not being victimized by others and you're alone, you will start to victimize yourself. It's all about harmony. It's all about balance. Right? It's not a spiritual thing. It's straight out physics. So if you want to end the world the way it is and all its problems, well, we have to stop being victims. We have to go, shit, you know what? Mom and dad abused me. So what are you going to do about it? Okay. What are you going to learn from that? And it's really, really important because, say, mom and dad were abused from their parents, right? And now they pass that abuse on to you. And then are you going to pass it on to your kids? Is that what you want for your future? Is that what you want for the future of humanity? Of course not. So either way, you have to look at your pattern and go, gosh, you know, I was victimized. Well, okay, what are the properties that victimized you? And then you work on that. You become exponentially intelligent and you go, gosh, you know what? And I'm not a victim anymore. I've helped, again, thousands of individuals not become a victim anymore. And they feel good about themselves because, one, they not only helped themselves become stronger, right? XI is so powerful. exponential intelligence is so powerful, especially if your kids are young. The kids stop running a victimized pattern. They don't get bullied in school anymore. That's how powerful it is. Now imagine if you eliminated that from your kids. They have kids of their own someday in the future. Well, what happens? You end that victim pattern. Now, if you're an abuser, you have to understand or why you abuse, right? And most likely, those abusers, again, a victim at some level, what happens is that they're they they have a lack of something. They feel a void of something. So what they do to victimize people and why they victimize people, and again, I don't feel sorry for any side of it, right? I just see patterns, right? So those individuals, they're a void. It's like, God, I feel like a void. I feel empty. I feel literally a lot of those individuals, I feel death. They feel like dying. So what do? They grasp onto anything that's living and destroy it or consume it, so to speak. And it's pedophilia, child abuse, adrenochrome, all that nasty stuff to feel good about themselves, to feel like they're alive. It's much like those individuals who say abuse themselves or cut themselves, hurt themselves. They don't want to do that. They really don't. Right? It's not their choice though, but it's the best choice for them because they're running a pattern of slipping away. Again, they feel like they're dying inside. So what do? You do something to create instant, say, instant connection to this reality. So you cut yourself, or you abuse yourself, or you destroy somebody else, or you destroy property, right? So instead of doing that, go internal and go into that void that you have. And when you start doing that, start nurturing yourself. And as you nurture yourself, and if you need help, again, we've got plenty of tools, by the way. If you need help with that, a lot of deep state meditations, I call them hyper meditations, that literally rewire your makeup, your, say, spiritual blueprint. So you don't run those patterns, whether you're a victim or you're an abuser. And that's how we end abuse. That's how we end and destroy that pattern for good. Because as a human civilization, we should have learned from the past, like thousands of years ago. But in reality, unfortunately, since we haven't learned, what's happened? Abuse has gotten worse and worse and worse. So, oh, and let me finish what happens. Okay. So the end of times, right? And that doesn't mean the end of the world. It just means the way this time frame or how the physics of this reality work end. There's a newer version, an updated, say, version that happens. Okay. So here's the deal. So everything gets taken back to whatever you've done in the past. Okay. You are given back whatever you've done in the past. So say that you've abused millions of people, okay, like few dynasties, governments, and so on, right? Country, you've abused millions of people. Well, all the souls and all the distortions that you've abused, say you've used curses on people, witchcraft, and all those things, however you want to talk about it, right? You've killed millions of people, you've drugged millions of people, right? Whatever it might be, something that's destroyed somebody, right? So what happens is like the original sin, right? I'll put it in religious terms, the original sin or the core, the inception of that frequency, okay, the inception of that pattern that you've started, okay, within you, you get to take back. So now you've abused a million people, okay? And here's the sad part on all you individuals, if you're listening to this, that abuse, especially say the deep state families and so on, right? That think that they're gods and they're kings, like George Soros and stuff like that. It's like, hey, I don't care. I'm just here to make money. Well, George, if you're destroying millions of people's lives, it's a heavy investment because what you're doing, okay, in this case is you're exchanging debt. You're basically going, hey, you know what? I'll take billions of dollars, right? I'll make billions of dollars, and here you go. Here's that debt, right? Upon you. So in that scenario, the people that he destroys carry George's debt. Okay. And it becomes equal again. So what happens on these end of times, again, it's not the end of the world, but the end of how this time frame works. What happens is like, hey, you know what? I can't carry this debt anymore, George. Sorry. You have to give that, I have to give this back to you. And that's where retribution happens. So they take it all back. Okay. And it sounds good, right? It sounds really great. And it is. It's really fantastic. Again, it's about equilibrium. So George Soros will feel the pain, the distortions of millions or whoever is affected. Imagine that. Okay. But here's the deal. Okay. The victim of what's happened, no matter if it's sexual abuse or, in fact, George Soros or whoever else, right? So the victim, now they run a deficit, right? George paid them, so to speak, hence carried their debt, right? In exchange, George made money. Okay, so the transaction gets reversed, right? One, how George loses his money is that his billions of dollars will feel like nothing to him. It would be like $1 billion worth a penny, because intrinsically there's no value left because the exchange rate has changed. He took back, or he's forced to take back the distortions or the pain or the suffering. So again, the value goes down. He gets destroyed, which sounds great. The other side is the victims, unfortunately. Since their presence, since their identity was based on victimhood, abuse, and so on like that, they literally get torn out. All those patterns get torn out. So, well, that's a good thing. But imagine if you are running, like, say, 90% victimhood, abuse patterns, and so on like that. And it's like, hey, you know what? We need to remove your pattern. You need to return that to the original owner. And then you go, well, wait a second, that's my whole life. That's my whole identity. I don't know who I am without that identity, right? Because again, 90% of you, it's like having a tumor over 90% of your body. And it's like, and the surgeons there, it's like, shit, we need to remove the tumor. Either way, you die, unfortunately. Because if they remove the tumor, 90% of you, again, just gets thrown out. Same thing here with frequencies. 90% of you get thrown out. You don't know who you are, right? You die. The good thing about both sides, by the way, is in this time, end of times, what happens is that as both sides awaken, again, your existence refuses to say cannot sustain itself here. But on the flip side, as you die, you awaken. So you forgo the sins on both sides. Again, equilibrium. You forgo the sins on both sides, abuser and abusee, and then you enlighten and you go, shit, I never want to do that again. And then that's where humanity. So in this end of times, it's an awakened state. In the past, that abuser, that victim, would just keep perpetuating it into that family line, like I just discussed. Okay. Unfortunately, one last thing. Okay. Say that you come from a deep state family or a dark family or an abusive family and so on like that. Unfortunately, say George has kids and so on like that, right? Family. So what happens, this is really sad, but what happens is that George can't take on all that debt because, again, that debt comes from his lineage, right? So the burdens are too much for one individual soul to take. So what happens? His relatives, his family is like, hey, I've got way too much. You guys need to take all those burdens as well because you're all interconnected. Okay. So, all right. Hopefully that cleared a lot of things up. Again, this isn't the end of times. It's a beautiful beginning for you and humanity. Become exponentially intelligent.